Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, hello.
Good morning.
Ah, there's my sound. Sorry, I had my.
Do you know how I can increase the volume?
On your computer?
No, it does not affect the sound volume of Zoom.
Have you looked in Zoom preferences?
I'm using an iPad, you know. Let me see where the preferences are.
Because on the computer, I know exactly where to do that.
Yeah.
But that's not going to help you if you're on a.
No, I cannot find anything here.
Let's ask the Oracle. Google says.
Ask the Google machine.
Increase volume for Zoom iOS. And increase the volume of your mobile device using the volume button.
Oh, I found it.
Ah, perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now it works.
Wonderful. So I am wholly unprepared today. It's Tuesday, and talk to me. This is a talk show.
How is it going with the gallery since it's open again?
I've had a couple of visitors come through.
Okay.
Yeah, it hasn't been. No, I mean, I can't, do any song and dance about it, but there are people on the street, and that's good. People are out, and they're coming by. And the photo Szene from Cologne came by yesterday and did a video interview with me.
Okay.
Which they're going to be, they're doing that, I think, with a number of galleries that are involved in the photo Szene, which is supposed to start, I think, next week or this week. It's like now, basically, about what people are doing. And it seems that this show has been getting some attention. So I'm hoping that through that maybe something will happen. Oh, we've got another attendee. Oh, there's Brian. Right. Well, okay, sorry. I'm still a one-man tech team. So, okay. Yeah. Yeah, so, it's going. But people are still a bit tentative right now. It's we discussed this a number of weeks ago. Hey, Brian.
Morning.
Morning.
Or afternoon.
We discussed that the market is primarily focused right now on work that's well-known or blue chip, because people are still buying out of a sense of security.
Yeah.
They don't want to. People are. I don't think right now are interested in investing money in work where they can't quantify the value somehow with a sense of security. And anything that's new or unknown is going to be a challenge for most people to get their head around. So, I mean, but there's good news coming. I heard in the radio today that our knots ratio in Germany is now 0.7.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Which is, oot. That's good news. So we'll see. Whilst America is on its way into the grave. Sorry, Brian.
Yeah, we'll see what happens here. It's like I'm not going any place enough. Although in South Florida, we're still pretty much have to wear masks, and the beaches aren't open or anything like that. So depends on where you are.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the conversations have now started about the end of all of this and how that's going to pan out. So we'll see.
The problem we face is that we've got 50 different governors with 50 different policies, and none of them are coordinating, and that is not ideal.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, even
The U.S. is,
governors are opening up and mayors are keeping things closed. So
Right.
that's not really working too well either, I suspect.
yeah. And it's like, I think America is a lot more like Europe than it is like a single country in Europe, in that sense, that the governance is much more spread out. And I think the European Union has done well with this, but only insofar as we've been forced to. So we'll see. So how are you guys doing? What's everyone working on?
Well, I'm not really traveling, let's say it this way,
Really?
which I normally do and I normally enjoy a lot. But the good thing is I have lots of negatives that I never turned into prints. So I'm spending every morning basically, or we are spending every morning basically in the darkroom developing.
Oh, great.
And that keeps me alive. otherwise, man, that would be a very difficult time.
Yeah.
No, and so I'm enjoying it. Always in the darkroom, you know. It's only my supplier of platinum and my supplier of the photo paper, you know, they ran out of the material now. So so the quarantine needs to come to an end.
Yeah. So you're doing platinum prints?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so you have a platinum print, like the UV light press?
Yeah,
thing?
everything.
Wow.
I started with platinum prints maybe 2 years ago. And I don't know if you know my series Creatures of the Seven Seas, with the fish and the octopus and so on. And this series, it's completely done in, it's not only platinum, it's a mixture of platinum, iridium, and rhodium prints.
And that's the process that you've been doing videos on, where you're, it looks like you're colorizing and then.
No. This is silver gelatin.
Oh, okay.
This is darkroom toning silver gelatin prints. But the platinum prints, I do 3 series on it. So the fish series with the Creatures of the Seven Seas, and this became super successful. It's amazing how deep the prints become in platinum. And I don't know if you know Tom Peng, the son of Irving Peng.
I've met him a couple of times, but I don't know him well.
Okay, so he found my prints, you know, online, and he said, I want to see those in real. So last Paris photo, we met in a hotel in Paris, and he freaked out on the platinum prints. He said, never seen something like this before. They are so deep, and he called one of the guy who helped Irving Peng printing to come into this meeting and look at the prints. And so the Tom Peng and we are pretty good friends now. And so and then I do another series. It's portraits and nudes, and it's I love you know the interpretation when platinum and iridium and rhodium, you know, it does something to the skin tone. It makes it really alive. So I'm doing a lot on this right now. And then I'm working on another series in platinum, and this is with snakes. It's called Fear and Death. So, but this is under construction. It's not finished yet. I wish it would be finished, but I need to travel for that. It's half done.
I have an artist that I've worked with, Michael Summeroff, who's a good friend in New York, who was doing platinum prints of his 6x6 negatives.
Okay.
And, those were also just quite extraordinary because of the, I mean, you know, there's something very magical about the process, the physicality of it, the papers. and how, and he was doing well, I think you can only do hand coated papers. It's
Oh yeah,
a brush process. So you paint the
yeah,
emulsion onto the paper and then you expose it and then wash
yeah.
it. And he had a really hard time finding somebody to do the work. He ended up finding a guy here in Germany who I met once, which is why I don't remember, like, just briefly, who had all of the gear in his basement, and he was, kind of doing this as his side hustle. Like, he's retired, and it was just like, this is the money that he used to go to Mallorca.
No, so I had probably 20 photographers contacting me if I would do their prints.
Yeah.
But I can't, it's so time consuming and it's so delicate. I'm happy if I can finish my prints.
Yeah.
And but man, I love platinum, and especially when you combine it with iridium and rhodium, it's amazing. But financially it's a killer,
Yeah, they're really expensive to make. That's true.
Oh,
yeah.
So
it's like, let's go grind up a ring and put it on a piece of paper.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much, when the material, my pictures are 56 by 76, I believe, something like this. And when the chemicals for the print are more than 250 euros, it's crazy.
Yeah. I'm not going to ask James what he's been up to because we're going to get to that on Thursday. So no previews.
Right.
So Brian, why don't you tell us about what you do?
I am working on a series of albumin prints from glass plate negatives that I've been making. And I also have to order more chemistry, and the chemistry is expensive for this process, lots of them, and I don't know how quickly I can get them. But I'm also working on not only the original glass plates that I've made in camera, but also I can print in my studio from old Kodachrome slides and current Fuji Velvia slides that I've made, so I can print directly onto the glass plates if I want to, or on tintype plates.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And I've not.
But it's a monochrome process, right? So you're interpreting, basically creating a negative from the slide.
Right. Where in the case of a tintype, it prints as a positive image. But right, that's right. And there's a process to making the tintype surface. It's called Japanning the plate, and it involves baking. So I don't have right now an oven that's suitable for heating and hardening the surface, but I'm working on ideas to get something in place this summer for that.
Is it a high temperature oven or a low temperature oven?
Not terribly high, like 300, 400 degrees. Normal temperature range is good, but it just has to be big, because would have to do a number of plates at the same time to make it efficient, because and if you get it wrong, then you have a lot of defective surfaces, which for certain purposes could be useful, but not for what I have in mind.
Yeah. All right.
One last thing that I'm working on, this is my third project for the summer. I got really interested in the chemical artifacts that come from the collodion materials. And I began to look at plates that I had allowed to be submerged in silver nitrate and then oxidized. So I see fractal patterns. I see chemical traces of the organic reaction. So I've started scanning those at high resolution to see exactly on print output how much detail I can get. So I'm working with someone who's doing that part of it because I don't have a printer that's large enough, and he does, so he's helping me. But I'm really interested in the abstract qualities of the material. So that's something I'm really passionately involved in.
Nice. Oh, you know, the material abstraction or the restraints of material are a fascinating thing to integrate into your own work. You know, it's who was it? Cy Twombly. It was one who was looking to not be able to draw. Like he was trying to not draw, and I know this from jazz musicians particularly, who are so steeped in the understanding of what they're doing and how to move fluidly through sound and through sound structures, that there are musicians who actively look to not be able to play well, to have the excitement of that new experience. You know, which is, it's an interesting aspect of creativity, I guess.
It can get you going in directions you might not expect, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. The serendipitous shifts, you know, you take a lucky picture or have an accident in the dark room and create something, and you know, move on to a whole new direction.
Right.
Which can be great. How's your sales going, Taylor?
Yeah, they've plateaued, I guess, since the end of the campaign, but it was good. I reached my goal, which was I at least wanted to sell 5 out of 10, and
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you, and I'm waiting those to be shipped here for me to sign a number and then ship them off to their owners, and within that week as well, I sold 2 darkroom prints in 3 copies, and so I really have just noticed that people are wanting to buy art, but you just need to let them know that it's for sale, you know, and just kind of be constant in promoting that. So I'm actually going through my old archive prints and thinking of like what I could be posting now to share with people, just on like what's for sale, to continue to kind of to snowball that as well. And I think for the first time in my life, I'm pretty much caught up on developing film and scanning film and organizing. So I'm almost losing work for myself because I'm so caught up.
I heard Jan has some work to do.
Right. Yeah. So like I don't have a dark room. So I mean, I have one in the cellar, but it's not assembled. But yeah, there's no space in my flat for a dark room. So unfortunately, I can't print now. So I'm just kind of trying to find new ways on how to promote and still share stories through some of my old photos. So
Good.
yeah. But yeah, I was really surprised with selling 5, and it kind of got me thinking, you know, maybe doing online campaigns a few times a year with these larger prints, and I just think people responded really well, and it's yeah, like it got a lot of online reach, which is more than I usually get as well. So
Good.
Yeah.
Keep it up. You know, it's, I mean, anything that works, you know, if the material is getting out there and people are buying it, it's a great measure of, you know, of what pictures people like.
Exactly.
We had at a jazz club about 11 years ago in Bonn called the Jazz Keller, which was of course filled with photography, and it was free because of the laws with copyrights in Germany, which are like ridiculous for musicians. And so at the end of the show, we would pass a hat around, and the amount of money that was put in the hat was the clearest indication to the musicians of the quality of their show. Because if they played really well, the hat was full. I think you know, it was a bar where you could, if there were 20 people in the bar, it was full. And if there were 40 people in the bar, you couldn't move. I mean, it was tiny. It was just this microscopic little basement room with a bar, a piano, and some chairs, and that was it. And at the highest point, I think the largest turnout we got was somewhere around 500 euro
Oh wow.
and a half from like 20 people,
Yeah, that's amazing.
because everyone was like, wow, that was extraordinary. And the worst, you know, there's like people put in like 50 cents.
Right. Yeah.
Pocket change.
That's New York subway fare.
Yeah.
Putting in. You know, I was like, I think that we have to find ways of artists supporting one another, helping to get work known, buying work when we can, encouraging other people to buy. So
Yeah.
and Taylor, I've enjoyed the videos that you've produced about your work, and I like what you had to say last time about the story that you can tell to introduce yourself in the work. So I haven't done as much of that as maybe I could, but I think that's something I would like to try.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, give it a shot. Just spend 1 hour creating a video and hearing yourself talk, and just say, okay, this sucks. Let me try it again, and then you just have to keep doing it.
Yeah, you just have to keep doing it. And the biggest part, you have to actually sit down and do it. Which is the most challenging of all things, is to actually just put it down. Just
exactly.
say, okay, I'm going to put this into the world, and that's what it is. So
exactly.
Yeah, I've been looking from new things that I'm thinking about. I'm looking for a way to standardize framed picture photography in the gallery without having to sacrifice a whole room for it. And I think I have the solution. I have these metal legs from an old vacuum wall that I used to have for A0, for photographing A0 prints. I have a very high, I have a phase 1 80 megapixel IQ 180 digital reproduction stand, which, but it's a vertical stand, so I can't use it for the pictures that I want to do this with, but I have these stands. So I was thinking, if I just make a little section of wall that I can put in my gallery, then when the show is hung, I have 2 nails on this wall, and then I can just go through the room and take every picture off the wall, put it on there, photograph it with the same shadow, put it back, go through and make a process of it. And maybe one of you has some advice on working with keyed out backgrounds, because I'm looking actually to create PNG files that are transparent. So that I have the image and the shadow, and then I don't have to be concerned with the background color that it's being projected onto, so that I don't get locked into a certain tonality, or I don't have to falsify the colors or post-process them beyond doing, you know, a Photoshop action sequence of keying out that tone. Does anybody have any experience with that?
I have no experience with Photoshop or digital.
Unfortunately not.
So you guys are my analog guys.
Why wouldn't you just leave it as a image of the object on the wall with the shadows and a little bit of wall around it?
Because of the way I want to integrate it into the presentation. If I do that, then I have a box and a box and a box. And if I have the image with the shadow, but I have no wall as a solid color, I just have it as a transparent or an alpha channel, the entire background, then I can put it inside of the homepage anywhere inside of the page with shadow, and it would render then that shadow onto the surface below. Which means that I can, you know, if I want to present on a black background because the images require that tonality, then I don't have to swap out the background physically that I'm photographing, and I don't have to match the color of the background wall to the wall itself. Knowing, of course, that light is not as precise as pixel rendering of the same hex value inside of a computer screen. So
You're kind of speaking a foreign language to me.
sorry. If you photograph a white surface, it's probably not the same white everywhere.
Right.
And if I put that image onto a white HTML background, then you'll see the edge.
Of course,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
That's what I want to get rid of.
Okay.
All that complicated stuff I just said, because I'm going for the Apple product site experience of showing art. I got this whole thing, with the parallax background. So you get, first the preview and fade it out, and you get the text come in, and then boom, there's the picture in the frame with the shadow looking absolutely gorgeous, so that you want to buy it.
Yeah.
And because I'm asking a lot of money for a number of these pictures.
Yeah.
Fair money, but it's still, there's a big difference if I'm selling something for 100 or 150 euro, or if I'm selling something for 15,000 or 100,000.
Yeah. How is the presentation difference between selling something for 1,000 to 15,000? Like, what is your experience in that?
If it's a person-to-person experience, like a physical object experience, particularly for photo collectors, they will want to see the actual object, the actual photograph, because a lot of it has to do with the aesthetics and the kind of the entire thing about what the physical nature of it is. When you buy a vintage print, you're not buying necessarily a better print of the picture. You're buying the history of that image, the history of that object. And that's what ends up becoming the value, because you're saying that this was in the hands of the artist. This was done at that time, and it survived all this time. And so I'm honoring the fact that this thing has been cared for so many years by paying this price and by supporting all the people who have shared my conviction over the years. With less expensive work, it moves more in the direction of consumption. For a picture you buy for 150 euro, for a student, that's going to be a lot of money. Or if it's the first picture ever purchased, it's going to have a particular place in the experience. But for many people, something you buy for 150 euro is not something that you would be, completely distraught about from a financial standpoint if you didn't have an emotional bond to it for other reasons. So like that.
Yeah.
And everybody has kind of a magic, like there's a hump that everyone has to get over. And like Starbucks is famous now, or infamous now, for having raised our coffee hump from $1 to $5. Like people don't think about buying a cup of coffee for $5 anymore.
Right.
Where 20 years ago in New York City, if you walk into a coffee shop and the guy gave you a cup of coffee and asked for $5, he'd probably get the coffee back and then the cup afterwards.
Yeah.
And so that those limits, and this is actually part of the challenge that photography has had to deal with over all of these years, is insofar as the definition of the object bound to photography. And that becomes the primary defining characteristic of the object, meaning I'm selling a photograph, then people automatically lower the bar or put the hump that they have to get over significantly lower. If you talk about it as art, it moves up automatically, which is why I've actually stopped referring to photographs as photographs unless I'm talking about literally a photograph, like something that has the functionality of a photograph of something. I talk about artworks. And this was, I had a conversation with Darius Himes about this last time I was in New York before Corona, where he was ecstatic because he said that particularly with the merger of, or the merger of Pace McGill into the Pace Gallery, meant, well, the way that Pace did that, or Mark Glimsher specifically did that, is they announced that they now had a new team of people who were specialists in art in the photographic genre.
That's smart.
Very, very smart. And Darius was ecstatic. He's like, look, we won. We got it. We did it. We're there. Because one of the huge mega players has removed photography as a separation. It's just a genre. And saying it's a genre of art is something very different than saying it's art or photography. And so that's kind of the thing that I'm working towards in very small, and that wasn't that long ago. It was a couple of months ago. So I can't really say that I've been very effective as yet, because I've been locked up at home or in my gallery.
That's been a long battle in the history of photography. Yes. That thing you're talking about. So it's good. It's good to see that happening on that institutional level. I mean, late 19th century photographers were trying to emulate paintings, because it was somehow deemed less than a medium of art, and that's good to see.
Yeah, and I remember when Hausen approached me a couple of years ago about working with the Sander estate, and the impact that had on the kind of the larger art market was huge as well. Beyond Sander's positioning, it also meant that another really big gallery was stepping up to photography. Now, Larry Gagosian has been dealing with photography for quite a while, but I think his program is, he's in some things much more much more willing to take risks, or has been. Maybe it comes out of the fact that he started selling posters on the street corner, which I think is awesome. But yeah, you're right. It is. It's been a long uphill battle, and the battle continues. We're still trying to get through that, and to define it, and to make sure people get it for what it is. So when you speak about photography, speak about art.
Yes, absolutely.
Don't offer any photographs to anybody.
It's also a problem in the translation of that, when you get from large metropolitan areas to anywhere else in between. The language will go a different place, and you get that division. People still want to talk about it that way, and other places outside where the major markets are, and maybe that's just gonna take time still.
Yeah, time and consistency and endurance by people who are putting that message forward. We know the Impressionists. Nobody was interested in the Impressionists. They couldn't sell their own work, barely, at the time they were doing it. There were collectors who said, "I'm going to buy that." There were gallerists who stood up for it. And I think that's, again, and this entire conversation around who's involved with the defining of the arts, I'm absolutely convinced that it's a three-party game. It's the artists who are creating the work, it's the gallerists, the curators, the museums people, or whoever's formulating that into a more, how shall we say, an audience, a more audience-friendly way of understanding it. And then it's the viewers who are engaging with the work, and by responding to it in the form of praise, in the form of sales, or in the form of disgust and frustration with it, whatever it is, it gives everybody, it becomes a kind of a circular conversational thing that's happening, and the arts become valuable for us in culture through that. If it's not social media. You know, it's not, we can't sit there and just make an echo box. We have to engage and challenge ourselves and challenge others, you know.
Well, isn't part of that issue also valid and articulate, educated criticism of photography? In the feedback loop, the arts need valid criticism.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's actually an interesting point, because valid criticism is almost impossible to come by, because the places where they report only make money if people go to the site or buy the magazine. And so people have gotten used to reading stuff that people want to read, which is ridiculous.
Yeah. Too often the marketplace determines the criticism, or at least is the criticism, is sales numbers, without it being a social or educated value critique.
Then you'll get artists who, like I'll say William Eggleston, who works in color, obviously, but when he first was shown at the Museum of Modern Art, the New York Times critic called it cracker chic. I mean, it's a derogatory reference, being a Southern artist. They called it cracker chic and said it was one of the most boring shows of the year. And he was grappling with the kind of subject matter Eggleston was photographing, which is, he was almost working like a pop artist with everydayness and just reflecting back to us, you know, certain, I don't know, it's kind of like banal things in culture, just life. And it's kind of personal documentary, and nobody really got it. And so you get Ansel Adams writing to John Sharkowski at the Museum of Modern Art, how can you hang this work on the walls? I'm ashamed that my work is even in this museum now with you showing work like this. So that took another generation to sort out. So, and I think with photography, the people who are doing new things or looking at the medium in a new way, you know, like Greg Crutzen, who is working in a way that no one has before on that scale. Takes time, and so we're gonna all that stuff just churns the waters, and we keep having these debates, and we'll have to keep fighting those fights.
Yeah, you know, I think it's. I mean, I keep coming back to that short reference from Kandinsky, where the fact is that every time has its language, artistic. And it's the job of all of you as artists to connect to that zeitgeist and to speak that language. And it, you know, comes out in every person's creativity differently. I've found, you know, like when you're discussing, if you're talking with somebody who's not convinced of what they're trying to convince you of themselves, unless they're really good salespeople, i.e. gallerists, then you'll feel it. You'll know that that something is not right with what they're saying in how they're presenting it. It may not the fact is wrong, but the fact that they're transporting it is wrong.
Right.
Because they don't believe in it.
I'm thinking about what you said I think it was last week, about your personal interest in art that has photography that has a political or cultural meaning, or for you that has some kind of center of gravity around defining us. And it doesn't have to be that it's carries a specific message that gets you thinking about those things, other things that lead you into that. And I think to your point, if you're a buyer and you're talking to somebody, they're going to get a sense of whether you are actually invested in the work as work, not just as a means of a transaction. And I was hearing that when you were talking.
Yeah, well, I would honestly, I would be ashamed to call myself a gallerist if I wasn't able to say that about the work that I speak to. it makes it a bit challenging when I have to deal with material that's tough for me to get my head around. But there are times when, I mean, certainly nobody is full-ended, and the experience of discovering things and rediscovering things happens to me regularly, which is why I go through my drawers. Just look through things and rediscover pictures, bring them out, and just put them down and sit there and look at them for a bit. And then I pack them back up and I put them away, and then I'll bring them back out again later, and that becomes kind of the pool of experience or visual words I then curate with. But again, you know, I would be really embarrassed to call myself a gallerist if that wasn't an integral part of what I do. And you know, maybe, I mean, this is going to sound kind of nasty and horrible of me, but one thing that may very well happen during this entire pandemic phase is that all of the people who were here just to make a buck because they thought that they could, you know, get some fast money or not, but their only focus was financial gain in the arts, they're all going to disappear. And that's probably a very good thing. You know, it's too much. The amount of work being offered is too much. Free photo, from my experience, is way too full. You know, Art Basel is a meat house, like it's a butcher house filled to the gills. It's, you know, all of them. Any fair you go to, it's ridiculous. You know, and it's almost impossible for people who aren't skilled at removing the noise to go through those places and those experiences and actually be able to see anything. And the really large downside of that is that if you become blinded or you become numb, then you're not seeing the bad, but you're also not seeing the good. You end up not seeing because you're numb to it. It becomes inebriating, and then you can't see anything anymore. That's horrible.
Jerry, yeah, as art critic Jerry Saltz had a word for that, or a phrase for that. He called it zombie formalism, where everybody's.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Zombie formalism. Yep. A lot of echoes. A lot of echoes in the art schools, you know, where they address certain artists and then work on them and present them.
I like removing the noise though too. I like that.
Yeah, you know, it's the fair stand we did a couple years ago with the one picture on the wall. That was
amazing.
Probably my ballsiest thing that I've ever done. It really was. That was an amazing year because we never had such intense and deep going conversations. And people would stop in front of our stand and just look at that one picture, and that was it. They would stop for like a minute, 2, 3, 5 minutes, just stand there and look and kind of like, oh, and relax, because I felt the entire, like you couldn't see anything except the gray wall and the one picture.
You definitely needed that Paris photo. You need to have a relaxing moment.
Yeah.
You know.
But you can't do that every year. If I did that every year, then it would be, you know.
It wouldn't mean anything.
Yeah, it would get tired.
Yeah.
I actually intended to show 5 works that year, but the response to the one picture was so extraordinary that I just said, why go through all the work? Let's just show one work. And Martin Scholler, he was there right across from me. That was also interesting because he had these gigantic, beautiful printed portraits of transsexuals. These heads, which were, you know, the heads 3 meters high or something. They were huge, quite stunning. You know, you look down the long hallways at the fair, and you would see this just gigantic, beautiful face. And then as you got close, you would realize that it was a transvestite. And so it was a really interesting kind of experience to see how that the viewing experience and the understanding changed people when they got closer and when they finally understood what it was. and how far were they able to accept their seeing of the beauty, or did they force themselves to step away from the beauty because of the moral dilemma that they were running into?
That parallels life.
Yeah. But people were still massively knocked out by my very large sander print, but by comparison, tiny picture on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So, so what are the plans for the future? What's everyone up to?
Well, as soon as it's possible, traveling. As soon as it's possible, I'm out of here. And then I'm starting a new series. I actually started, and I have one picture already. It's about socialist living, or these old communist blocks, concrete blocks. So I identified in the former Soviet Union some of these, and some of them are really, really amazing how they are built. So I go there with my 8x10 large format and take pictures of it, and then I want to turn them into huge platinum prints. This was the time when they came up in the 60s and the 70s. People moved into the cities, and everybody thought this is the answer. And today it's blocks of loneliness, and they are still there, and they look incredible, and I want to show this. Everything that has to do with globalization and identity attracts me. And this. I took a picture of one of this building. It's fascinates me. You can even feel what's going on behind all these windows, all these walls. So this is going to be a series of probably 9 images, really big ones. So this is what I'm working on, and then as soon as I can, I continue my snakes. The next ones are cobras, so that I can finish this project hopefully in the fall. Yeah, and so as soon as I can travel, I'm traveling. I'm coming to Cologne.
Please.
Kim and I, we talked, and we said we need to go to Cologne. This is one of our first trips, and so yeah, we need to get out of here. We feel the roof is. The ceiling is coming down slowly, and we need to breathe.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that absolutely.
And and we miss going to museums. And as soon as we can, we are in Amsterdam at the Van Gogh Museum, and we were planning this for a long time already, and yeah, just to get out with our cameras also a little bit, yeah.
Great.
In 6 weeks, in 6 weeks, where Ruth is having a kid, so that's my future. That's my 2020.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So we'll expect you back like next summer.
Yeah. So you guys will see me later. No. No, but when the darkroom is open again, I'm definitely going to be going there more. And really, this year and next year is just focusing on finishing up my Florence lift printing stuff, and I definitely want to create like a hardback book, and release that, and kind of do a campaign and exhibition, and even try and get something happening in Florence at a gallery or something there, just because that's what it's all about. So,
Cool. Great.
For me, immediately, my body is very sore right now. I have done a meditation retreat where I have done sitting pretty much in increments all day long. And
oh my God.
I was got to scream yesterday because in the morning, it was too much. My legs kept falling asleep, and I've had really good moments with it and moments where it's just been, oh my God, this is terrible. I would do it again if I had to, but I'm gonna need to rest. The other thing I want to do, and with my work, is I've had a number of people who kept telling me, you've got to find a way to sell your abstractions. You've got to find a market for that work. And that keeps coming back to me. And these are prints that I've done quite large that could go into other than homes. And I've got to figure that out. So that's one thing that that I'm going to be working on. And then I am just starting to figure out my next project in collodion, and I'm sort of finding my way with that one.
Cool. Nice. James, what are you up to?
Well, since I moved from New York to Miami in 2013, I haven't done any shooting. I'm trying to get back into that, and I'm finding that models in Miami are not as available as ones in New York. You know, figuring out how to access that. I mean, there was, you know, after living for 40 years in New York City, I had a base there and an understanding of how things work. It's very different in Miami, and I haven't gotten that figured out yet. I mean, a lot of the time down here that we've been here was involved in buying the property and building the house. I GC'd the whole project here, and that's about 2 years beginning to end. So, and then when we moved all the stuff into the, still unpacked later. So I've got to get back to shooting, you know.
Well, you should.
Yeah. Because I mean, there's a lot of apprehension there. It's like, okay, where am I going to pick up where I left off? I think I have to, just to sort of get back in the saddle of shooting, because it's been what, 7 years since I've actually been in the studio with the model. But where it goes from there, I'm not sure. It's for me, it's a progression. You do it, you look at it, you see what it is. Did I get what I thought I was going to? And if I didn't, do I accept what I have, or do I go back and try and get something else? So the process has to begin, and hopefully I'll get to that sometime this summer.
Well, I mean, not to move too much of your history, but considering the amount of time you spent with a camera in your hand, I don't think it's going to be a big, long process to get back into it. I think it's probably more like, do I really want to sit on the bicycle again or not? You know?
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting too. I mean, I started what I'll be showing tomorrow. I started shooting that, I think, in 05, so in the process, looking at the negatives, I contacted it, scanned some of the negatives, picked them out that I thought was good. So I've been looking at those scanned images for a long time, and recently I was going back and looking at the contacts, and I'm going, wow, that one's pretty good. Why didn't I scan that? So there's a whole sense of reevaluation of old images. Down the road, you look at it through different eyes. So that's also what I need to really examine too.
I've had that exact experience with my own photography as well.
Yeah.
Where you go back and you discover things that you didn't see originally because you're removed from the memory of taking the picture. And so you're seeing it with the eyes, basically almost with virgin eyes, if you will.
Yeah, or 15 years later, you have a different idea of what is good, or what's worthwhile. So, you know, that's sort of part of the process too.
All right, guys, I need to quickly get my charger plugged in. Please carry on. Where's my plug? Or else all of a sudden everything will just end, which would be stupid.
James, we're seeing your work on Thursday.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I have, and I'll talk about it then, but I had up until several months ago, I guess last fall, I hadn't actually printed. Well, made a few prints, but I hadn't really made an effort to print. And I got a show in a law office here in Miami. I'll take, Moldy Baker, I'll take a show any place. It wasn't a bar, it wasn't something else. So as a result of where it was, there was predetermined images. I've got some images that are vaginas. Well, you can't put vaginas in a law office. So those weren't in the series of prints. So it's a little bit tame in terms of the objects photographed, but there's still a thread of the same subject throughout. So, and I don't know, Julian, if I show some of the pictures of vaginas, are we in trouble? Any place?
I have no idea. I had a picture by Rosalind Solomon, which I posted on Instagram, that it got removed. It's a picture from this current show of the girl with the pasties on her nipples from the cat club.
Yeah.
And I said, this is not pornography. This is in preparation for an exhibition. And they gave me, they put it back online. So I think if the context is accurate, it's fine. If we're doing, if you present the work as pornography, then it will be seen as pornography.
Right.
And it's not. I know the work, so I'm not worried about it. But some people do get bent out of shape.
Yeah, two of the images in that category is there was Francis Naumann, who is an expert on Deschamps, had a show coincidental to Deschamps, but it was called the Visible Vagina, and he was an invitational, and one of the artists in there was Yoko Ono, but it was in that context. But even within that context, on 57th Street, it was like my images were like, oh my God, this is in your face. So we'll see.
Oh. Alfredo Struer. I've had to deal with this issue because a dear friend and an artist I represent, Alfredo Struer, an Argentinian guy, he did this series called Familia, which was a kind of a documentary series of photographs of B-level porno actors working in, where was it? I think Brazil, in Sao Paulo or something. And he stayed with them for a while and photographed them in their day-to-day life. And so, you would see them and with their stripper clothes on, carrying their kids to bed because they had to go to work, but their kid wanted to go to bed first. So it kind of challenged the entire idea of, what is this? Because we all know that that's part of the industry that the world thrives on. I mean, it's not without reason they call it the oldest profession. But one of the pictures was very funny because apparently one of the actresses or the porn stars said, okay, I'm going to give you this picture. It contains sunglasses and a cigarette. I'll leave the rest up to your imagination. And that's one of those pictures where I said to Alfredo, that's going to stay in the portfolio. We're not going to put that on the wall. I can't put that on the wall because it's
I had a friend in Singapore who was doing a series on gay couples, and he was going to show some of that work, and some of it was erotic and intimate, some of it was other aspects of life. But he was going to show this in a gallery, and before the show opened, Galerie said, no, they were looking at the work. No, we can't put these up. It's against the law there to show that kind of work publicly. And so his way around that was, it was digital work, but he just pixelated the prints and he abstracted it, and he was able to show the actual content in an abstract way, and he got around that. But there's certain, it's bizarre to me how restrictive people are and culture in different places. And I happen to live in an area where, you would probably have problems showing that kind of thing in a gallery or publicly. It's just amazing that we still have these conversations now, as far as we've come.
Yeah, part of the element of my work has to do with the cultural interpretation, and I fully accept that there's going to be places, where none of my images could be hung on a wall, and that's the consequences of what I. Julian, I want to know, was your objection to the cigarettes?
Yeah, it's arts have always challenged social norms. I mean, I remember studying the Renaissance of the North or the entire influence the church had on the creation of paintings in general, where there always had to be a representation of, it had to have a Christian topic, a churchly topic. And they started to change it where at some point they were doing these lavish still lives, and somewhere like this big in the back was a cross, which you could like barely tell, just so that they could like do that. They could do the painting and it was still, it obeyed the laws. Or, Thomas Roof's, although those have to do with something else, that has to do more with the imagination, the series that he did of basically porn pictures that he ran a Gaussian blur over or something similar and sold them as high art, which, I guess you could say that. Good.
So, and America is still a very Puritan place. I like that line of the Cole Porter song, that instead of landing on Plymouth Rock should have landed on them. So that's one way.
Brian, are you available?
Wow, that was loud.
That's Google. That's actually from the studio.
I do not use any voice recognition at all. Oh, by the way, I fixed the image recognition problem I had.
Oh, good.
If anyone wants to see, I can do a little show off here just briefly.
Had just a line of code that was off?
It had to do with the way that I added information to one of the return objects, which then broke a method of measurement. That's what it was. Okay, so grab my picture again. And so I have this here. And there it is.
All right, we didn't see any of that.
No, we didn't. We're just seeing a screen of code.
Yes.
Oh, that's weird. Let me reshare because maybe I shared the wrong window. Sorry. You see this now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll do this again. And it finds it.
Not bad.
Just to prove my point, let's see if there's another picture. One of my favorites. This is one of my favorite Louis Farrer pictures here. See that? 1975, vintage Louis Farrer. And it's made, the system's made to use a webcam, not this webcam, but to use a mounted webcam, of course.
Awesome.
That's
And that
Great.
becomes really, really useful when you're dealing particularly with staff who don't know what stuff is,
Right.
because they don't need to know anything about it. They can just scan the picture.
And we covered that you could, if it's a big painting in 3 galleries down, you can take your phone down, do a snap of it, and then upload that, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
And the whole idea is that the library that I built here would allow me to also later scan through books, find images, and recognize them. And I have a small JavaScript library that I set up, which would also allow other homepages, like all of your homepages could have this plugin in it, and it would allow you to scan information and find it on your own homepage. Because I could index the images and people could then find work that way. So there's all these, use cases. And the other thing that I added, which I showed yesterday, was this file upload system, which, let's see, you'll probably find one of these. No, try that, see if it finds it. Yep. Which means that it works whether I'm using a folder with files in it, or if I'm using a webcam. And of course, it works on the phone too. So anyways, that's what I've been nerding on.
Yeah.
More of that next Monday.
I know-
I need to go.
Yep. We've been at it for an hour, so I guess it's a good time to call our Muppet balcony session to an end.
Yeah. Thank you. It was amazing again.
It was fun
Always-
to have you guys here. Thanks for sharing, and
Thank you.
try and keep
Always looking forward to it.
great. Well,
Bye.
be safe.
Bye, everybody.
And see